Mom. Right? All right. Awesome.
All right. So the Jersey Boys MMA podcast is starting. Timmy's in the background breakdancing.
Yeah.
Some of us have beer. Some of us don't. CG, how you doing? Mike, how you doing? How's everything going?
Doing well. Excited to be back. We got a great card ahead of us. UFC 228. Cannot wait. What are you thinking, Chris?
I'm liking the card. I was talking to Steve earlier in the week. I'm a little upset that Ryan Benoit dropped out. I was really looking to have high exposure to Roberto Sanchez in that fight, but the show must go on.
And I'll even go a step further. I'm not really looking forward to this card. Earlier in the week, I was not a big fan of it. I think the thing that's going to save it is I think there's going to be a lot of finishes here.
Yeah, but I think we'll see a bunch of upsets too. It's GPP or bust. I
agree with that.
Formulating cash lineups early.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But I don't think from a talent standpoint, I don't. Other than obviously the main event, a lot of these other fights, I just don't think that there's a lot of talent on this card. But we can get right into this. The one thing I wanted to kind of announce, I started something. I don't know if you guys saw it on Twitter, but I started a Brews and Bets podcast, and with Tyler, Ty Slice. He goes by Ty Slice on Twitter, and we had this idea to do betting because obviously gambling's legal now in the United States, and specifically in Jersey, we can play Draftkings. So we decided Brews and Bets, and we started reaching out to some breweries, and we have a couple breweries who decided to basically send us free beer. So it's a great opportunity to get free beer, talk about the fights, and we're gonna do some podcasts for the NFL too. So if you guys are interested in another podcast, you know what I mean? Maybe we can get you some free beer. It's not the worst thing in the world.
Excellent.
All right, so.
Yeah, I had to promote that. I'm excited about it. So first fight here. This is, again, UFC 228. Our main event is Darren Till and Tyron Woodley. I do have to fix, Mike, I forgot to fix the write-up. I actually had the wrong names. I cut and pasted from last week. So I'll do that when we're done here. But Frank Camacho and Jeffrey Neal is the first fight. We were a little concerned because prices hadn't dropped until later in the day today, but Camacho is now at 7.5K. Jeffrey Neal is at 8.7K. I think this is a GPP fight. I have a feeling this is going to finish. Neal, his fights just happened to finish. 6 straight fights have finished. He's a local guy. He's from Dallas, Texas. He hasn't fought the best competition. He beat Brian Camozzi. I kind of think that Camozzi kind of sucks, to be honest with you. No offense to him and his family. But Neal did lose to Kevin Holland by KO TKO. So he does have some good fights, but for the most part, the guys that he fought in the UFC aren't that great. Camacho, on the other hand, his only win in the UFC, this is going to be at 170. His only win in the UFC is against Damian Brown at 155. His other 2 fights, he lost to Drew Dober and Jiang Lee. The Leech. He's a very tough guy. Very tough guy. He can take a punch, and I have a feeling that in this fight he's going to take a couple punches. Camacho can use his wrestling. He has some good inside trips up against the cage. I'm not overly convinced that he's going to be able to do that to Jeffrey Neal, but I mean, anything can happen. I think Neal has the speed advantage, and I think he's going to have the cardio advantage. Camacho has gas in the past. So I took the first fight. I broke it down. Obviously, I'll throw it to you guys for other fights, but we got 14 here. Mike, what do you think for this first one?
Wow. Man, Camacho's 7,500 price tag jumps at me. I'm looking at underdogs who I think have a legitimate shot at winning. And in my mind, he does. He's a 170-pounder, and he's coming off of a fight against Dober, who's a 155er, but he's huge. And then you look at Neal, who has fought at middleweight before. Camacho, he came in with the reputation of being somebody who goes balls to the wall and gasses quickly, but he's gone to decision in most of his UFC fights. He's shown some versatility with some judo and the trips, as you have mentioned. He has a great chin. This isn't his first fight against a lefty, and Neil is a southpaw. I think that Camacho is a live dog here, to be honest. Neil, I know there's limited footage on him. Neil's the hometown guy. He did win on Contender Series with a very impressive knockout. Man, was it a knockout or a sub that Neil won on Contender
I
Series?
think he knocked him down and wound up getting a sub. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, yeah, okay. Man, this is a great fight to target from a DraftKings perspective, to be honest. And I'm not counting Camacho out here. I think at plus 155 he's got a shot, though I do think there are better. There are other live underdogs for this fight as well. What's your take, Chris?
So Jeff Neal has solid striking, good footwork, landed almost 6 strikes per minute in his first UFC fight against Brian Camozzi, his first real fight. I'm just not overly impressed by the win. It looked like Camozzi was looking for a way out, and that's not going to happen with Frank Camacho. Frank Camacho is always ready for a war. Camacho lands 6.6 strikes per minute, and although it does seem like he has the propensity to gas out, I mean, he went the distance in his last couple fights, has a TKO rate of 71%, and he landed over 100 significant strikes in his last 2 fights. Even when he lost his last fight against Drew Dober, he still put up 80 points. In his fight before that against Damian Brown, he put up 100 DraftKings points. So just based on his volume alone, my preferred play is going to be Frank Camacho. Go ahead.
Did you guys catch the interview with Drew from Jersey Boys?
I did not.
Drew interviewed Frank Camacho. I gave it a listen before the podcast tonight, and I think everybody should give it a listen. It was pretty intriguing stuff. He said that he came into the Dober fight with a foot injury and wasn't able to do much road work. In that weight shouldn't be a factor. That he got into town earlier, and which fighter doesn't believe that they're going to win? But I thought. He looks like he's ready. I'll say. So I'm actually going to go a step further, and I'm going to pick Camacho in this fight.
Yeah. Another important statistic, too, is 7 of Neal's 9 wins were by finish, and 6 of those 7 finishes were in the first round. So just seems like if he doesn't get that finish in the very first round, then there's a very high likelihood that it could go to decision. And if it goes to decision, I mean, even in a loss for Camacho, he can still make value.
CJ, the one thing I'm gonna mention to you that I said Brian Camozzi sucked. You said it in a nice way, but you wanted to say he sucked.
He's fucking terrible. He's
okay. Thanks.
He's awful.
That's all I wanted to hear. That's all I wanted to hear. Our
sure,
next
he's a nice guy, but
oh, by the way, Mike, I appreciate that you brought up the interview with Drew.
Yep.
Drew's gonna actually do a lot more interviews.
Sorry.
With Jersey, New York fighters. So
excellent.
In the future he's gonna kind of do that, and I'm gonna handle the bets and the DraftKings stuff. So there should be some more stuff in the Jersey Boys on our YouTube feed. So the next fight is it was Jared Brooks and Roberto Sanchez. This is a new fight. Mike, I'll throw it to you to introduce the fight. But Jared Brooks, I believe, probably about 5 days ago, 4 or 5 days ago, is when he took this fight. I think something like that.
Yeah,
right. So what do you think about this one?
He gets Jared Brooks comes in to right the wrongs here. He, as everyone who was glued to their TV set saw, was beating Jose Shorty Torres and knocked himself out. That's as plain as we can put it. So I'm glad he gets a shot to get back in there. Jared Brooks, very, very short guy, very small for the weight class. I don't think cardio is going to be an issue for him. He reminds me, honestly, of a Tasmanian devil in there. He's only 25 years old, Brooks. He is a sizable favorite. Odds jumped up right off the bat at the opening. And he's taking on a local guy, Roberto Sanchez, who is fighting out of Texas, Little Fury. He's coming off of a win at UFC Austin. He was winning. We're talking about Sanchez now. He's always looking for submissions, though he was winning the fight early against Morales before he got stopped. Man, I originally, I'm. It's sad that the Benoit fight got scrapped, because that fight was supposed to end inside the distance, whereas this fight is actually the odds suggest that it's going to go the distance. But here's my question: Is Brooks? Is he going to put himself in situations where he's going to get submitted? Is he going to try to stand with him? What's your take on this fight with Sanchez and Brooks?
Go ahead, Chris. What do you think?
So, yeah, I think it's a dangerous matchup for both guys, really. I mean, both of these fighters have proved not to have the best fight IQ. You know, Sanchez was finished in his first fight against Morales, scored a finish in his last fight against Joby Sanchez. Jared Brooks, like you said, knocked himself out in his last fight. So, you know, I just don't really know how you can trust either guy. But from a DraftKings perspective, it's all about value. And one fight that comes to mind is Jared Brooks versus Eric Shelton. Took Eric Shelton down, I believe, 5 times and only netted 72 total DraftKings points. So at his price, I can't have much exposure to him because, you know, he hasn't scored a finish yet. And I have, you know, I could against Sanchez, but I just don't see it happening. So for the price disparity and, you know, the jiu-jitsu game of Sanchez, and, you know, there's always that chance that Sanchez could use that brown belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu and score a submission. Mm-hmm. So just from a value perspective, I don't necessarily think he's going to win the fight, but I'm going to have more exposure to Sanchez, and I don't think Sanchez is a terrible play in tournaments.
Yeah, and one other thing. After the first round, when you watch Brooks, he has these little T-Rex arms, and every time he tries to land strikes, he's just so far out of distance, and he doesn't really close the distance as well as I'd suspect. Especially if he's not going for a takedown, he really doesn't have much to offer.
I noticed he was very reliant on the spinning back fist in his last fight, just because, like you said, it's tough for him to get inside because of those.
He doesn't advance position. Yeah. But we'll see.
With all that being said, he did have a lot of success against Jose Torres. You know, he definitely won that first round, and he was probably winning that second round until he knocked himself out. And again, he's coming off a two straight fight losing streak. He was 13-0 going into that fight. Short notice, and I think the only reason he can take this on short notice at 125 pounds is he doesn't really carry a lot of weight. He's basically around 130, 135 pounds. So losing 10 pounds isn't a big deal for him. He just has a small frame. He's 5'3". Sanchez is 5'6". He's going to have a 3-inch height advantage. And I think at this weight class, that's a big difference at this weight class. Yeah. So that's the reason why I do agree that Sanchez is a great GPP play. I think he may also be a decent cash play. I'm just concerned about his striking because that one fight against Joseph Morales, the minute it became a striking fight, Morales just basically put a straight right on him that knocked him down. And again, up to that point, he was probably winning the fight with all the stuff he was able to get done on the ground. I think this is going to get to the ground as soon as Sanchez can get it there. Brooks is an outstanding wrestler. So I don't really like the price. Mike had mentioned that the price jumped up real quick today, and I kind of like that because I like Sanchez finishing ability. So I definitely like him in GPP. CJ, I'm going to get to the next fight. I'm not even going to waste your analysis on this one because I think it's pretty straightforward. But it's Irene Aldana and Lucy Pudilova. And for the most part, I really do think this is just going to be a straight up striking fight between these two 135-pounders. To go to decision, it's minus 400. I personally like Aldana. I think she's the better of the two strikers. But CJ, I'll throw it to you. Who do you think is going to win this striking fight?
Aldana, just because of her volume and her output. You know, Aldana lands almost 6 strikes per minute. Pudilova just above 5. So I think Aldana is going to win the fight, and she's one of those fighters that because of her volume, she can win a striking-based decision and put up close to 100 points. So I like Aldana.
And again, Mike, before I throw it to you, Aldana has fought Leslie Smith and Chukadagin, which are basically better fighters than most of what Pudilova has fought, although Landsberg I kind of do like a little bit. But Mike, what do you think here?
Yeah. At first, I want to thank Chris. You called last card that the Hill Casey fight was going to produce a lot of points, and it did. And I think this is another situation where that may play out. I've been following the little Twitter barbs between Pudilova and Aldana. Pudilova basically said that she was going to jab Aldana's face off, but I don't see that. I don't see that happening. A couple of things. Pudilova's very, very young. She's 24 years old, yet this is her 4th UFC fight. So she's still growing. Aldana, I was very impressed with her last fight. She seemed to really put it together. She really commits to her punches, and that was. I think that's going to pay off. I'm looking at the reach here. It's very similar. I see this being a three-round striking battle where depending on who's coordinating the fight metrics this event, it may produce some significant DraftKings points. So I'll be on this fight. But I'm a little upset though in a way that Aldana, the odds recently went in her favor just when DraftKings decided to put out their salaries. So now she's 8,200. I would have loved to have Aldana at 8,000. It makes lineup construction a little bit more difficult with her at 8,200.
Still mid-range though. Still mid-range price, fighter. So, all right, let's get into this next one. CJ, I'll throw it to you. We got the Jersey boy Jim Miller at 7.6K and Alex White at 8.6K. I'm a little unsure what to think of Alex White after watching him on tape. So what do you guys think? What do you think, CG?
So, obviously Jim Miller's a legend of the sport, but he's coming into this fight on a 4-fight skid. Alex White is the more technical boxer, and I think he has more power. But, Alex White has showed it in a couple fights now, but specifically in his last fight against James Krause, that he does not have the best takedown defense. So if Jim Miller can utilize some takedowns, he definitely has a path to victory. But, at his old age, Jim Miller just seems to like to stand and trade. And if that happens, I think he could very well end up getting knocked out. So because of the boxing advantage, my preferred play is Alex White.
Mike, what do you think here?
Okay. Yeah. Man, one of the reasons I mentioned this card is difficult from a DraftKings perspective is you have many fights where who's going to come out on top when their wills meet in the middle. You've got Jim Miller, who is a decorated jiu-jitsu practitioner who is going up against Alex White. He has glaring takedown defense. And thank you, James Lynch, for having the interview with Alex White earlier this year. Alex White had he said his insides were coming out, and he needed to have surgery to have them put back in, and he needed to be on the shelf for at least a couple of months, and then get back into light training. So that leads me to believe he had a hernia repair surgery, and you know how much you need your core muscles to fend off a takedown. I think Jim Miller's a live dog at 7,600. I wonder how much that Dan Hooker knee affected him. He looked very good against Poirier. Steve, were you at that fight?
I was at that fight, yeah.
Okay. He looked good in that fight.
Yeah, he basically kicked his leg off in that fight.
Yeah, and he looked good in the Pettis fight. But then on the other side of the coin, you have Alex White, who does have heavy hands. And look at Krause's face after that fight. He got busted up. How does Alex White not address his takedown deficiencies? If he did that, this fight would be in the bag. But I have some serious reservations, and I'm avoiding this fight from a betting perspective. Because this could go the distance, but I see Jim Miller with a legitimate shot here, and I feel comfortable from a DraftKings perspective taking taking him in this fight. Another reservation, this is his 40th UFC fight. This is a guy who's been in many, many, many wars. And, I mean, he could get hit with one shot from Alex White and the night could be done. You know, if Alex White comes out guns blazing, this is a home fight for him. If he comes out guns blazing, this could be over.
I agree with just about everything that you're saying. And again, Jim Miller, the thing that I wrote down for him is this guy has a toolbox. You know what I mean? He has all the tools. He just looks for ways to win. And I think he can find a way to win with Alex White. I think he can I think he can grind it out because Jim Miller can make it ugly. So I think he can grind it out. I think he can lose his clinch game. I think he can get him down to the ground. I don't know if he's going to be able to win it that way, but he's going to try to get it there. You know what I mean? And again, there is a glaring deficiency. Alex White looked real good on his feet against James Krause, but once it got to the ground, obviously not so much. Thing about Jim Miller, 35 years old. I'm a little concerned about that. I'm a little concerned that he's coming off that knockout against Dan Hooker. I was actually at that fight also in Atlantic City, and he's lost 4 in a row. So there's a lot of concerns with Jim Miller, but he does have that toolbox. So again,
and you need to look for dogs.
Yeah,
you need to look for dogs that are going to be able to come through at this price on this card. Oof.
And if Jim Miller does win, I don't think he's going to win by knockout or submission. I kind of think he's going to grind out a decision. I do think there's some other guys in this card that if they win, they could win by a knockout. But if we get into this next fight, this is a GPP fight. It's actually favored to finish. Inside the distance is minus 240, so it's favored to finish. Craig White is a decent favorite at 8.8K. Diego Sanchez is 7.4K. I'll take this one. Diego Sanchez is another guy who, a lot like Jim Miller, he's had a lot of fights. 36 years old. He's coming into a fight against a guy in Craig White who has 22 fights, and I believe 21 of them finished in the first or the second round. He has a variety of different finishes, and he filled in on short notice against Neil Magny his first time out. It's the only fight I really was able to watch on him, for this. I remember watching some of the other fights before Magny. And again, he's kind of resourceful. You know, he has that toolbox. He's not great at anything, but the guy he just doesn't see round 3. So in this fight, I feel like it's going to finish. Diego Sanchez, the minute you punch him in the face, he kind of grits his face. He puts that little scowl on his face, bites down on his mouthpiece, and just throws that left hand wildly. That's like the last thing you want to do against Craig White. You get all crazy with Craig White. I think he can take advantage of that. If it was a Neil Magny kind of guy who can kind of slow the fight down and systematically pick you apart, I think he'd have a better success. But I thought Craig White had a lot of success against Neil Magny. Magny was able to kind of frame his head and get that knockout. But for the most part, he was able to clinch him up, push him against the cage. He had a couple good striking combinations. Diego Sanchez is 0-2 in 2017. Knocked out by Ayaquinta, bad, and Matt Brown with that big elbow. I don't know, man. He's 36 years old. I think Craig White gets the knockout here. Whoever wants to take it. Mike, go ahead.
All right. Wow. All right. So I went back and watched a lot of Alex White. Sorry, we're on Craig White now.
Craig White, yeah.
A lot of Craig White's fights. And I'm thinking, how is he going to knock Diego Sanchez out, right? His stand-up leaves a lot to be desired. Thank you, James Lynch, again, for another fabulous interview with Craig White. When asked about what he expected, he said he wanted the most ferocious Diego Sanchez that he could get. He wants Diego to come out and try to kill him. That's the fight that he wants. So I'm thinking, all right, does he not think that Diego can finish him? Does he want Diego to just expend a lot of energy so that he can get a takedown or somehow manage to pull guard? And because that's what he does in many of his fights, he gets taken down or he pulls guard, and then he looks for that triangle. He's like the king of triangles here, and he's getting beaten by journeymen on the regional scene time and time again. Look at his record: 14-8. I'm not impressed with Alex White, but on the other side of the coin, Diego Sanchez, if he was smart enough to not get baited into that type of fight and not get avoided the triangle, I see Diego Sanchez having a legitimate shot at winning this fight. You mentioned, White hasn't seen the third round in his entire career. And Diego Sanchez went on a 10-fight decision streak that was broken only a couple of years ago, but I understand his chin might be shot now. He just gets caught into this where he just goes red line he doesn't have to. The Marcin Held fight, watch that. He fared really well and showed a great gas tank. I think that might have been in Mexico City, that fight too. So if I'll say it, I'll just say it out loud right now. I really think Diego has a shot at winning this fight. He's the third underdog that I really think one of these guys is going to come through. I think that it's going to be ugly quick, but whoever can persevere and if Diego, he's only been submitted once in his entire career, Diego Sanchez, right? So back when he fought Nick Diaz, you saw the type of jiu-jitsu he has. He knows what he's doing. So I think there are levels to this game, and although Diego looks like he's shot, I do give him a more than a puncher's chance in this fight. He doesn't have to punch. He could grapple. Let's see what happens. I know that was long-winded, but I hope you can appreciate my perspective.
No, I think CG can kind of break the tie. I'm kind of favoring Craig White and Mike's on Diego. So what do you think?
Yeah, I'll make this quick. I'm siding with Mike on this one. Even though Diego lost 3 of his last 4 fights via first-round TKO, I mean, it was to Matt Brown and L.I. Quinta, top 15 guys. So Craig White, I mean, he fought in the UFC once. He got beat in the first round. I also listened to his interview on the James Lynch show, and James Lynch is a full-time financial analyst, I believe. He only trains part-time. So if Diego can get out of the first round, what's going to happen if he takes Craig White to deep waters? Can he go a full 15 minutes with Diego? And if he can he win a decision? So I think if the fight gets outside that first round, then Diego has a very good chance to win the fight. And Mike, you mentioned earlier on Twitter that you said Craig White spends a lot of time on his back, and Diego has his wrestling. He has decent jiu-jitsu. He's obviously battle tested. So I can't spend, $8,800 on Craig White when he hasn't beaten a viable opponent yet. So I think there's more value with Diego, and he is my preferred play.
7,400.
Are we saying Diego by finish or by decision?
There's a multitude of ways. You know what? He deserves. It's been so many years since he's had a finish. Just imagine his visceral reaction if he's able to pull this off. He'll be like the king of the world for a few minutes. Give it Diego by finish. Let's give it to him.
CG, what do you think?
I think, when's the last time Diego finished anybody? Was it, holy shit, 2008? Is that right? Yeah, 2008.
And you're still going with the
10 years.
Yeah.
10 years.
So
what are the odds for him to finish?
Based on the historical trends, I'm going to go with Diego by decision.
Well, something's going to give here because Craig White doesn't like the third round. So
I don't know, man. The odds to fight doesn't go to the distance. It's -240 right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, Craig White too. I mean, his record is 14-8.
Wow. Sanchez wins inside the distance +515.
But Craig White did win, I believe. I don't have it written down, but I'm pretty sure he won 6 fights going into that Neil Magny fight and fought on basically it was like a week short notice. I'm pretty sure it was a week or 2
he cut 42
short
pounds, he said. Cut 42 pounds in like whatever it was, a week.
That's crazy. That right there is crazy.
He fought Leon Edwards, Craig White, and Oscar Pacoda. He lost to both of them. But, I mean, so it just seems like whenever he fought a noteworthy opponent, he lost. So, I don't know. I'm intrigued by this. I just cannot bet on Craig White.
But is Diego Sanchez a noteworthy opponent?
At this point in his career,
Coming
I
off,
don't know, man.
think about what that chin must feel like right now after the last 2 knockouts.
Yeah.
I mean, Ally Quinta basically he did this with his fist and just put 2 on his chin.
But it is Ally Quinta, and it was Matt Brown.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's levels.
This fight's a tough breakdown from a DraftKings perspective. I mean, we know what each fighter brings to the table, so it makes it that much more difficult. But I think Diego has a real shot at this.
All right, so let's get into this next fight. CJ, I'll throw it to you. I'm kind of interested what you guys think about this because I'm not sure how good Charles Byrd is, to be honest with you. It's not that I don't like him. He's a local guy. He fights out of Dallas, Texas. He's 8.9K, so he's expensive. Darren Stewart had 3 losses before he got that win against Eric Spicely. I have no idea what Eric Spicely was doing in that fight. Why he didn't try to get him to the ground and work his BJJ game is beyond me. But Darren Stewart was able to get him out of there. Pretty good boxer. Can Charles Byrd outstrike him and then get him down for that finish on the ground? What are you thinking, CJ?
That's kind of what I'm thinking. Byrd is coming off a win over John Phillips where he quickly took him down and subsequently landed the rear naked choke. He was very decisive with his game plan, executed efficiently. I'm not seeing any reason why he can't do the same thing to Darren Stewart. I mean, Stewart looked a little bit better in his last fight against Eric Spicely, but it is Eric Spicely. Eric Spicely is a great jiu-jitsu practitioner, but he doesn't have good wrestling. And so I think that's one area where Byrd is going to be a little more competitive. I think he's got a much more effective smash double where he can at least get Stewart to the ground. But before that, Darren Stewart was subbed by Julian Marquez and Carl Roberson. And I was trying to look up Carl Roberson's submission jiu-jitsu background, and I couldn't even find anything. So if you're getting rear naked choked by Carl Roberson, you obviously don't have high-level jiu-jitsu defense. And Byrd is coming off 3 consecutive submissions. So this is a very difficult fight for me to break down. But just based on what's happened recently, I think that Byrd can take Stewart down and score submission within the first 2 rounds. And if he does that, he's probably going to score north of 100 DraftKings points. So my preferred play is Charles Byrd.
So, Mike, I think CG was able to answer the question where he thinks Byrd is just going to go more or less what he did against John Phillips, not what he did against Wallace and the Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series, because he seemed like he didn't mind striking against Wallace.
Yeah.
And that's what concerns me. If he decides to strike against Darren Stewart, that's where he puts himself in kind of a level playing field. So what is he going to do here? Where does Byrd go with this?
Yeah, I think Chris nailed it. One thing about Darren Stewart, he's only 27 years old, right? And he did show some serious composure in the Spicely fight, but what we saw in the Marquez fight, he was willing to go life and death in that fight. I mean, that guy, he risked everything and still got subbed out. But he'll be looking to keep the distance. I think Spicely, he tried to push Stewart up against the cage and get the takedown. He just couldn't nail it. Byrd, a Texas guy, he's got to – his entire game plan, you saw what he did against Phillips. He went right into Mount over there. But with Stewart, I'm worried. Stewart did a pretty good job of keeping his hips away, and his timing seemed on point. I wonder Stewart's from London. I wonder if this is his first fight in the United States. When he fought Marquez, was that here? It might have been.
I don't know where. I didn't watch the Marquez fight. I watched it last time I scouted that, so I didn't watch it this time.
I think that was here.
That was a very aggressive fight. Like that Marquez fight went back and forth. They were all over the ground, punching each other.
So the Marquez fight was in Canada, but he lost to Carl Roberson in Norfolk, Virginia.
Okay. All right. So I think Byrd has a clear path to victory here. I like his price. Sorry, I don't love his price. 8,900. Oh, man. But he's going to get the grappling points. He's got to go for the takedown, and he needs to be relentless. Like, he cannot – his plan B can't be to strike. He has to nail this takedown. And then once he's down there, Stewart, he's got to stay – Byrd's got to stay busy. we can't have a ref stand them up. I forget what the judge or what the referees are like in Texas. I hope we don't have Mark Goddard with this fight. But I like Bird here. He's my preferred play as well. Even though it's 8,900, I think he might be a little sneaky.
And
He
I'll
could
tell
get
you
knocked
what.
out. He could get
No,
knocked
he could
out.
get
That's a
knocked out.
legitimate
And inside the distance
issue.
is minus 240, minus 245. So, I mean, for the most part, I think that's one of these guys is gonna finish this fight. So I do like this fight for GPPs. Now, this next fight, honestly, I don't want to spend a lot of time. We're doing pretty well with time right now. It's not that I don't like these guys, but it's probably going to go to decision. Minus 285 to go to decision. Jimmy Rivera and John Dodson. For the most part, I think we all agree with John Dodson. He's quick. Jots in and out of the pocket. These guys are both very short for 135, 5'3", and 5'4". I think it's going to be low scoring. I think it's going to be low volume striking. I think it's going to go to decision, and for the most part, it's probably going to be a split decision. Jimmy Rivera is coming off that loss to Marlon Moraes. That was the headliner a few months back. Round one, I mean, I don't even know how many. What was it, like 30 seconds? Caught that one kick and just leveled him. But most of John Dodson's fights go to decision, right? For the most part, other than didn't he knock out T.J. Dillashaw like 4 years ago or something like that? But I mean,
It's been a while.
Yeah, he's got a couple knockouts. I mean, knocked out Manny Gamburian. I believe he knocked out Eddie. Oh no, him and Eddie Wineland went to decision.
They went to a decision. Yeah.
John Dodson's got some knockout power, though. He does.
No, he does. But more recently, he's been in decision fights.
Yeah,
and that's what concerns me. I think this is going to go to decision. So I'm going to pick a winner. I'm going to pick. I hate to say it because Jimmy Rivera is a New Jersey guy, but I think John Dodson, beats him by the low-scoring decision. But what do you guys think?
I'm on the other side of this fight, to be honest. I do see it the way you do. That with Dodson's propensity to just jump in, jump out, jump in, jump out, and Rivera knows exactly what's coming. He's been planning for this for a long time. His boys at Tiger Schulman's, Dan Ige, and a few of the other guys he's been working with, Shane Burgos, everybody's been helping him.
Mike Trezano too. Mike Trezano's over there.
Yeah, that's true. With Rivera, my concern initially was, all right, he got knocked out by Moraes, but somehow after he landed that head kick, Moraes did, he never really went out. I'm talking about Jimmy, and he somehow, I was listening to multiple interviews, did not sustain a concussion, and within seconds was talking to the referees, and he gets popped in a lot of his fights. He gets. I was at the Almeida fight where he got popped and dropped, and I was also at the Yuri Alcantara fight where he got dropped. But he's a master of game plans. He's a point fighter, Jimmy Rivera. You saw what he did to Faber, and I think he's going to have Dodson's number. He's the better striker. He punches with more volume. I think he's going to throw leg kicks. Here's my problem, though. When Jimmy Rivera goes to throw his body punches, which he likes to do, I love seeing MMA fighters go to the body. Dodson, I could see Dodson coming up top and clipping Rivera. That is a possibility, but I think strictly by fight IQ, volume, and striking. I don't want to say power because I think it's even, but just diversity in striking attacks. I think that Jimmy Rivera is going to win this fight, and it's crazy the amount of split decisions. And when you look at lopsided scorecards, I swear John Dodson's in so many close fights. It's ridiculous. It doesn't have to be that way. I wish Dodson would engage and start to grapple, and I know he has that ability. But he just doesn't do it. He's content staying at distance and then coming in and firing off a couple of shots and then backing away. I agree. It's going to be a low-scoring DraftKings score unless that concussion that we told didn't happen was there and Jimmy gets caught. But I'm going with Rivera on this. And the 8,400. I think you can find better options around that price range.
So CG, you got to break another tie here, buddy. What's going on?
I'm siding with you this time, Steve. I like John Dodson in this fight, even though Rivera lands more strikes per minute at 4.5. Dodson's at 3.4. Rivera's coming off that demoralizing loss at the hands of Marlon Moraes, and I'll tell you what, that's not just something that you get over. You know, I have a feeling he's going to come into this fight. He's going to be a little bit skittish, a little bit timid, and John Dodson, you know, like you guys mentioned, he's been afraid to pull the trigger, but I think he is a top 5 talent at bantamweight. He's got some of the quickest hand speed in the division, maybe besides Garbrandt, and he also does have power. He has 9 TKOs under his belt, and so that's my thing. I mean, if I can get Dodson at a discount, and as far as I'm concerned, he has the quicker hand speed, he's a better counter striker, and he has more power. So, yeah, I like John Dodson, and I like him in all formats.
Can I make one last point? Rivera is 21-2. He's a winner, and I think that it shows some resiliency. Whereas Dodson, I know he's fought DJ a few times, 21-9, and the fight. Was it the fight against Moraes where he was where he was getting kicked in the nuts and complaining and
yes, yeah.
I remember him just laying off the gas pedal, and so, even in the Wineland fight, he has so much potential, and if he poured on the gas, he could be so much better. I think the potential is there. I agree, Chris. I think it's a close fight, but we'll see.
One last point, too. So Jimmy Rivera's been finished by Moraes, and he was also finished, I don't know if you guys remember this, by Dennis Bermudez on the Ultimate Fighter to get it in the house. So he's been finished twice. John Dodson has never been finished.
Rear naked choke, I believe.
Well, and again, I think we're in agreement that this fight is probably going to decision, though, right?
Yeah.
Or no?
Probably. If not, Dodson gets the TKO.
Okay. So this next fight, I got to throw it to Mike. Aljamain Sterling is the hometown, New York boy. And again, Mike, I'm going to leave you with this, but Sterling, I think we keep forgetting to mention some DK prices. But Sterling is 8.5K. Cody Stamann is 7.7K. They're getting back and forth with each other. Again, Aljamain is very talkative in and out of the cage. So he's he always is. And he's on Twitter all the time, in people's faces. This is favored to go to decision. But again, I'll just bring up that Stamann beat Brian Calloway, and Brian Calloway did beat Aljamain Sterling. I believe it was like 2 years ago. Okay, so I think that, and Misha Tate was in his corner for that fight. So not that matters, but I noticed it on film when I was watching. So Mike, go ahead. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think Calloway won that fight against Stamann. To be honest, I was shocked, and I was on Stamann in that fight, so I was happy, but felt very, very lucky in that respect. Staman's he can use his offensive wrestling, but like we saw in the Calloway fight, he has trouble when he's on his back. That was the big question, big elephant in the room headed into that fight. How would Stamann react if he's taken down? And I didn't like what I saw. Sterling doesn't have the best stand-up. I believe Stamann has better stand-up than Sterling does. But when it comes to grappling and, we just got off of the Jimmy Rivera fight where we saw a fighter who has a very impressive will to win. Stamann, I believe, only has one professional career loss, 17-1, right? So they're around the same age. I like having Sarah and Longo in my corner headed into any fight. I really think that Sterling is going to be the better grappler in this fight, and I think that's where the fight's gonna take place. Somehow, I see Sterling taking Stamann's back. I know this fight's supposed to go the distance, but I wouldn't be surprised if Aljo ends up getting the submission here. But my pick is Sterling. This isn't a homer pick. I actually have done the research and thought this out. I see Stamann being in a way a safer play because he is going to put up some strikes and he does have the offensive wrestling. But if things don't go his way early, And he just seems like, even though a lot of the weight's in his legs, he seems like the smaller fighter to me. I think there's going to be a little bit of a size difference in this fight, especially when they head into the cage. Aljo let me know that he was 151 earlier in the week, so the cut to 135 shouldn't be an issue. I like that these guys are jawing at each other. That makes me feel like, all right, they aren't going to stand at distance for long. And Aljo, like we saw in the Moraes fight, it ended so quickly, but he looked like he was about to be content striking. His striking looks very awkward, I think, because of his longer limbs. Look at the reach disparity.
That's what I was going to bring up. Yeah,
64-inch reach versus a 71-inch reach. I mean, man. So Sterling has a few areas where he could take this fight. He just needs to have a higher fight IQ. Although Stamen has showed a incredible high fight IQ, coming in 17-1. But I'm going with Aljo in this fight.
So what do you think, CJ? Personally, I really do think that Sterling kind of turned the corner in the Brett Johns fight. And I know Mike just said he's not in love with his striking, but I thought his striking was a lot better against Johns. But what do you think?
Yeah, so you guys know I'm really big into the fight metrics, and you look at Cody Stamen, and he's at shoots 6 strikes per minute, 4 takedowns per 15 minutes, but sometimes you have to take those metrics with a grain of salt. In that Tyrion Ware fight, he had 94 strikes and 8 takedowns. Then he had another 4 takedowns against Tom Duquesnoy. But, I mean, although he's a good fighter, like we've mentioned before, there's levels to this game, and I think Aljo is on a different level. When you look at Aljo's last 5 fights, his only 2 losses were to Rafael Assunção and Marlon Moraes, 2 guys that are in the top 5. So I just think that he's the better overall fighter in this matchup against Cody Stamen. I like Aljo. You guys mentioned it. I love that he's got Matt Serra in his corner, and I think he's really hitting his stride right now. But from a DraftKings perspective, I think this could be a back-and-forth decision. Aljo probably going to win 29-28. But you look at, Sterling's fight log. When he wins a decision, he typically doesn't score very high. I know he did against Renan Barão, but, besides that, he's around 75 to 85, and that's not going to win you a GPP. So although Sterling is my preferred play, I'm not going to have much exposure to him.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. And the one thing that I'll add is I really do like Sterling's leg kicks. I think he uses those kicks pretty good to keep distance, almost like a jab too, to kind of keep distance. So there's not much more I can say. You guys more or less said it all, but I do like Sterling.
One last thing, they're still evolving. I mean, these are 28 and 29-year-old fighters,
yes,
so they still have some room for growth. I like where this is headed, though. I'm glad Sean Shelby and the crew made this matchup, because these things need to happen.
It's actually the fight earlier in the week. That was the fight that I was most excited for. I really did like that fight. Next fight, Carla Esparza is 7K and Tatiana Suarez is 9.2K. So I'll just go out on a limb. I think both of these girls are better on the ground with their takedowns, and I think Suarez is just better. I think she's vicious. I think she just gets after it. She doesn't waste any time. I haven't seen anything that tells me she's going to gas. She's undefeated. And again, don't get me wrong, Esparza has probably fought the better competition. I mean, she definitely has. She's fought the better competition. But she's been taken advantage of on the ground. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, I think Tatiana Suarez is as good, if not better, than anyone who's taken advantage of her previously. So CG, what do you think? Are you in the same boat with Suarez, or?
Yeah, I love Suarez. I mean, Carla Esparza lands 2.5 strikes per minute, and she lands 4 takedowns per 15 minutes. But Suarez is on a completely different level wrestling. Lands over 4 strikes per minute and over 6 takedowns per 15 minutes. She's a DraftKings All-Star. She's never scored less than 113 fantasy points. She's only 27 years old, and I think she really could be the future of this division. So Suarez is one of my favorite plays on the slate.
Yeah, I think they're taking their time with her too. They're not throwing her into the wolves too quickly. The one thing I do like about this fight too, to go to decision is minus. So this is favored to go to decision. It's minus 185. I can kind of see a couple opportunities for Suarez to either get the back or do some damage and get her down. So I wouldn't be surprised if it finished. I mean, I'm not saying bet it. I'm just saying I was a little surprised that the decision was minus 185. But
Yeah.
Mike, what do you think?
Right.
How's the dog doing? Is the dog hungry?
Oh yeah. She's this wild beast. I swear, she's a majestic beast. I had to bring her up for a second. This fight, whoever gets stuck on bottom is going to score very poorly. I mean, that's like the clearest thing from a DraftKings perspective that everyone needs to be aware of. So, Suarez is the legitimate favorite. I do see her winning this fight. She can't get to that championship fight quick enough from my perspective. I wish Andrade got there first, though. We'll see. But Esparza, she had a great showing against Claudia, right? A lot of people thought that she won that fight. And I could see a lot of people punting with Esparza, thinking that she's going to put up a lot of grappling points, but man, this might just be a rinse and repeat for Suarez. She's got the length. She's got the cardio. I think so too. I think so too. Yeah. So quickly, this will be my fastest. Get to the point. I do see Suarez winning this fight, and if it is a decision, she could put up a significant amount of DraftKings points with those takedowns. But if she lands one takedown in the entire round and then just they're like transitioning and she's stuck in Esparza's guard and then she's got side control and then she's back in the guard again. You're getting passes, but I think I'm looking at the price tag right now, 9,200 for Suarez. I like Andrade a little bit better at that at 9,100.
Suarez wins by decision plus 210. I don't hate that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They think, wait, is that a discrepancy? What's the odds to go to decision?
I have the decision at minus 185. I may be wrong, but that's what I wrote down before.
If fight goes to decision, minus 185.
Okay.
Suarez by submission plus 210.
You said by submission?
Suarez by submission plus 210.
Oh, submission. I thought you said decision before. Okay.
I heard decision.
Yeah.
I do like Suarez by submission, and again, CG had that big submission call last week, or 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
So I can't put that past. I kind of like that call, but I tell you what, this next fight, let's get into this because this is probably my second favorite fight after the Sterling fight. Nico Price, we get him at 7.9K, and Al Hassan. You know what it is? I haven't seen Al Hassan in a while. And he fought Hamasi back to back. I don't know if you guys remember that. I watched both of the fights, and Hamasi basically bounced up in that first fight. Who was it? Was it Herb Dean? I think it was Herb Dean. I didn't write it down.
Yes,
that's right. He called that fight a little early. Don't get me wrong. Hassan put a couple punches on him, and it looked like he could have went down, but Herb Dean jumped in there too soon. Hamasi stood up and basically wanted to keep going. Obviously, the fight was over. So they ran it back. It was quick too. I don't think it was more than like 2 or 3 months later. I don't have the dates written down, but I mean, Al Hassan basically destroyed him. He had an inside uppercut that dropped him. He's good. He's strong. He's quick. His punches are fast. Good movement. He's a judo player, so he can kind of hold his own on the ground. But again, Nico Price just finds a way to win fights, man. 12-1. Al Hassan is 9-1. I love watching Nico Price fight. Last time out there, again, his only loss was Vicente Luque, who we haven't seen in a while either. He actually trains out of Jersey, but I think he's Brazilian, but he trains out of Jersey. But for the most part, his hammer fist from bottom to knock out, who was that? Randy Brown?
Yes.
Is that Randy Brown?
Yes, sir.
I mean, that was unbelievable. So Nico Price just finds a way. He's creative. He finds a way to win fights. Al Hassan is tough, though. I kind of like Nico Price, so I'm going to pick Nico Price to win, but I'd love to hear what you guys are saying about this fight because this is a good fight.
Right. Chris, is it okay if I take this one?
Go ahead. Yep.
All right. I feel like I know both of these guys better than I know my own family. I've done so much tape study on this. It's it's ridiculous. So Al Hassan, he's been in Texas for a while now. He's 33 years old, decorated judoka, but he doesn't necessarily use his judo in his fights. He feels much more comfortable standing. He said it himself. He never underestimates an opponent. We saw what happened in the Akhmedov fight. I forget, he was a huge favorite in that fight, and a lot of people had many units on Al Hassan, and it ended up getting taken away from them. I see some glaring deficiencies in Al Hassan's game. He throws these wide hooks and puts everything into them. His wrestling isn't where it should have been at the UFC level, considering he was training with guys like Johnny Hendricks at the time, etc. And, you hear like, oh, this guy's training with this guy and that guy, but sometimes it doesn't help. Nico Price, he's willing to take risks. My initial lean was that Nico Price was going to get knocked out when I was doing tape study on this fight. I felt like the Alex Moreno fight taught me a lot, that Price was on the verge of getting finished in that fight, and then he landed that knee at the end of the round. But Price is a ball of energy. Somehow he's managed to get a record of 12-1, and that Moreno fight was ruled a no contest. He seems like he's having fun in there. He's got great jiu-jitsu, and Al Hassan doesn't want to be on the bottom in this fight. If Price is able to counter, which it's going to take some big balls to do that, because Al Hassan throws bombs. If Price gets in there, and I think he might be the guy to try to counter Al Hassan and then get a takedown somehow. I think Price is a live dog in this fight. The safest play, I think, is to have this be that it doesn't go the distance. I think last time I checked, it was minus 365 that doesn't go the distance. This might be the fight to stack in cash. Both of these guys are gonna go to war. Tough fight to call. I actually wouldn't be surprised if Price ended up getting the upset here. I'll elaborate a little bit more, but I'd like to hear what your perspectives are on the fight.
So Al Hassan, he is the more high output striker, lands over 4 strikes per minute, has a 100% finish rate. Nico Price has 5 wins in the UFC, 1 loss from Luque. All of his fights are exciting. All of his fights have ended in a finish. So from a DraftKings perspective, you always have to target fights with both these guys, really. I just think Al Hassan is the better play in this matchup. I think Al Hassan is much more explosive. He has the power. He has the superior hand speed. And I think it's a good matchup for Al Hassan. I usually roster Nico Price. I just don't like him in this matchup just because, I've been watching all their fights, and I just think that Al Hassan is by far the more explosive athlete. And although Nico Price is tough, he has a 5-1 UFC record, I think he's kind of an overachiever. So Al Hassan is my preferred play, but, I can't hate on you if you want to have some exposure to Nico Price.
CJ,
one other thing.
Let me just bring this one thing up. I don't have it in front of me, but did you notice Nico Price defensive striking?
Yeah, he absorbs 3.7 strikes per minute, and he only lands 2.5 strikes per minute. Yeah, he doesn't have the best striking defense. You could see that. That was very well apparent in this fight against Alex Morano and Vicente Luque as well. So, if he absorbs a couple strikes from Al Hassan, he's going to sleep.
You know what's scary,
I wrote it down, but I didn't know why I wrote it down. But go ahead, Mike.
Right. Yeah. Akhmedov was able to take Al Hassan down at will throughout all 3 rounds of their fight. And even Hamasi had some success in the grappling. And when Al Hassan ended up taking or found his way somehow to Hamasi's back, he did nothing with it and chose to stand back up and bang. And before their second fight, when they were on the scales, Al Hassan said this himself, that Hamasi told him, don't fade on me, because he knows that Al Hassan throws the kitchen sink at his opponents in the first round, and they usually have nothing left. He has nothing left after that. He gasses himself out. Although he did, in the Akhmedov fight, he did put up a valiant effort in the losing effort in the third round. But this is a tricky fight to plan for. It's hard for me. My initial lean was Al Hassan. I said, you know what? He's going to knock Bryce out. Look at his. George Sullivan was having success against Al Hassan. So against Nico Price. Man, tough fight to call. That's why I am not. I don't mind if I rarely stack, but this might be a fight that I consider stacking.
So let's move on. Fight number 11. Again, we're about an hour in, and unfortunately, there's 14 fights, so this is going to go a little bit longer. But try to move it as fast as possible. Jessica Andrade is 9.1K. Karolina Kowalkowski is 7.1K. And I think this is a classic striker versus grappler matchup. I think Kowalkowski is going to have whatever success she has is going to be on the feet. And Andrade, although she's pretty good on the feet, she's a beast with her takedowns. Very strong in the clinch, and I just think that Andrade is going to get it there when she wants to get it there. I think she can be a big DraftKings score, so 9.1K. I think she's very safe in cash. We haven't really said a lot about that, but for the most part, cash GPP, I think Andrade is very safe for cash, with the upside of possibly getting some kind of a knockout or ground and pound or something like that. But for the most part, Andrade was very, 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 very impressive against Claudia Gadelha. So, CG, what do you think? Are you on Andrade? Does she get this to the ground quick? You think Kowalkowski can, I don't know what she can do on the ground. For the most part, my only concern with her, she looked good against Rose. She beat Rose, but that looked like a very young Rose. Right. For the most part, I think whenever she's fought someone who looks stronger than her, they got the best of her. So that's why I like Andrade. But CG, what do you think?
So Jessica Andrade is one of my favorite DraftKings plays of all time. You look at her fight log: 155 points against Torres, 136 against Gadelha, 106 against Angela Hill, 119 against Calderwood. She is a beast in DraftKings. Karolina Kowalkiewicz lands almost 6 strikes per minute. She fights at a very impressive pace. Like you said, holds a win over the champ, Doug Rose. But Andrade is an absolute freaking robot. 6.4 strikes per minute, 3.2 takedowns per 50 minutes. Mm-hmm. Andrade is always a staple in my lineups. And I think it's very important that everyone watches the fight between Kowalkiewicz and Gadelha. Gadelha took her down, submitted her somewhat easily. First round. Then you look at the fight between Andrade and Gadelha. I bet that fight for Andrade. And, oh, my God, Andrade just beat the absolute piss out of her. I thought Andrade was going to win, but I did not expect that. She was just bullying her all over the octagon. So I always play Andrade all day, cash and tournaments.
Yes. CJ, Chris, I totally agree with you. This fight it's hard. I've mentioned this on Twitter that I wish they never made this fight, because I have a lot of respect for Karolina. She went in there and fought JJ, but she struggles against grapplers and folks who bring the fight to her and have decent wrestling. She's in big trouble. This is going to be just a bad matchup. Yeah, bad matchup. I don't know what Shelby was thinking when he signed this fight. I don't know what Karolina's managers were thinking when they accepted this fight. It to me makes no sense.
You have to think the winner gets a title shot, right? So
yeah, and the other thing, you're right. I mean, Carolina does have the win over Rose, but this is a totally different matchup. We saw what Andrade did to Tisha Torres and Claudia, and I thought, I mean, this is someone who she's 26 years old, Andrade, and she was fighting a few years ago at 135, and
Yeah, that's
since the
true too.
drop,
I did write that down.
yeah, since the drop to 115, she's just manhandled. Like she looks like she could hang with some male flyweights out there. It's scary how impressive she is, and it's crazy too. This fight's supposed to go the distance, but I think I might leave my TV and walk out of the house during this fight because I'm a big fan of Carolina, and I don't want to see her get brutalized, and I really think that's what's going to happen here. If somehow Andrade doesn't show up, I don't see that happening. I mean, she's someone who's money hungry too. I mean, it's been all over Twitter how she's had to sell her gear and stuff. So it just makes winning that much more, advantageous for her monetarily. So I think I'm on Andrade all day in this fight. I think Carolina. I mean, how does she expect to keep distance and fend off takedowns? Is that what I'm supposed to believe? Like the Herrig fight, is this like in the same ballpark? Is that what she's expecting, Steve?
I mean, I don't know. I was at the Herrig fight. I actually interviewed her. That was at UFC 223. And again, I think Carolina kind of struggled with Herrig more than I really expected.
She looked good in the clinch.
She did look good in the clinch, but I don't know. I think Andrade's on another level.
Imagine what happens when Carolina initiates the clinch with Jessica. I mean, she's just going to wrap her arms around her and pick her up and toss her on her ass.
And I think Andrade knows that she wins this fight, she probably gets a title shot with Rose. Her only loss is to JJ at 115.
Right.
And they're not going to give JJ another title shot until, Rose goes through one or two more girls. So I think whoever wins this fight, gets the title shot with Rose. And again, even Carolina winning this fight would get the title shot because I'm sure Rose wants another shot at her. That's her, loss. So
One last thing.
I think that's the reason they made it. You know what I mean? Like questioning Sean Shelby, but I think that's the reason that he made it.
Yeah, Carolina, she doesn't have that one punch knockout power.
No, she doesn't.
So why would Andrade respect Carolina's power? She should walk right through her and take her down. I don't see, unless she's worked on something that we're unaware of. This fight, it's pretty clear cut from my vantage point.
So I think the next two fights are clear cut. So I'm going to go pretty fast through them to try to get to this main event. But I got Zabit. I think he's going to be able to get Brandon Davis down and get a submission. I think he's an absolute beast. I actually had not an argument on Twitter, but I basically said he should be top 5 in the division right now, and I actually succeeded that he's probably going to be number 6 if I had to rank them right now. But I think he's an absolute beast. And then I think Valentina is just gonna destroy Nico Montana. I think she's gonna beat her inside the distance. So that's what I'm going to go with the next two fights. There's not much more to say. I just think it's a glaring mismatch. CG, what do you think?
I concur. Both Zabit the Freak, 4.5 strikes per minute, 6.5 takedowns per 15 minutes. He's never scored less than 107 fantasy points. Brandon Davis has 65% takedown defense. So, yeah, there's not a whole lot to analyze in either one of these fights. So, yep, I have Zabit and Valentina.
And if you want to see Zabit like on display, go back and watch the fight against Shaman Moraes, because against Bokniak, what did he break his hand or something? Pretty sure he broke his hand. That was at 2-2-3, right? But if you watch what he did to Shaman Moraes, especially in that third round when he submitted, it was just, I mean, he was like an anaconda on top of him. The kid couldn't do anything. He destroyed him.
Zabit had 11 takedowns and 10 advances in that fight.
It was a beating. But Mike, what do you think with these two?
Well, with Zabit, what's amazing about him is his physique. You wouldn't necessarily lend that to having grappling success. He's so lanky, but he's so proficient and highly skilled technically that he's able to use his long limbs to his advantage, and it really puts his opponents at such a huge disadvantage. It's disturbing. I think it's going to be a a clear. I mean, I heard Alan Belcher's crew saying that Brandon Davis is he's ready for this, and I don't see it. I don't see it. I think that Zabit should roll right through him. I think that the odds are accurate at minus 1100 in his favor. And then Valentina against Montano. Here's the thing with that fight. That fight is actually the fight doesn't go the distance. Odds is at minus 170. So
I already bet it.
I just think that fight that's saying that it might actually go to a decision. I mean, here's the thing. Valentina, we know, is she going to come in and try to annihilate Montano, or is she going to play it safe? It all depends on her demeanor heading into the fight, because she could win. She could win in the first round. She could win in the first 3 minutes if she really wanted to. But it just, I question her. Do I question her game plan? I know she's the clear favorite. She should win, but it's just, does she want to play with her prey? That's really what it comes down to. She could play with her prey for a few rounds first.
I'll put it to you this way. First of all, this is 5 rounds. I just don't think that Montano is going to be able to last 5 rounds with her. Not for nothing, but Valentina is she's a beast. What she did in that last fight, I mean, you want to talk about playing with your prey? She basically put more the disparity between strikes between her and I don't even remember the girl's name was almost
Polyana, right?
Polyana, almost as bad as the Rakic Ledet fight. That was a complete blowout a few weeks ago. I mean, those were just complete blowouts, not even close. So, I mean, I love Sashenko. I put 3 units on her inside the distance. I really like her to finish inside the distance. But again, even at that 9.6K, if this goes anywhere close to 5 rounds, like, she's going to score a ton of points.
She will score a ton of points. And for me, when she beat after she beat Holly Holm and then she beat Pena back to back, I think she subbed Pena out. That she did. That said a lot to me. And she's such, people are posting videos of her pole dancing and shooting guns and doing all this crazy shit. And she's such a, she's posting pictures from all over the world. She should add a belt to that arsenal of traits. She definitely deserves one. Montano, I mean, she's held on to this belt for how long now? How many months? It's ridiculous. And Shevchenko at the belt.
Not for nothing, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think that Sarge was going to be the favorite over Montano if she makes weight, no? In that tough finale,
yes.
Who would have been?
Yes.
Wasn't Sarge going to be the favorite?
Yes.
So, I mean, I don't know. I think this is going to be a blowout. I think it's going to – I hope it does, so I win my bet. But
imagine if Roxanne won that fight. Imagine if Roxanne won that fight.
She actually did look good in her last fight.
I know.
All right, let's finish this off. This is the fight everyone wants to hear about, and I don't think it's going to be a great fight. I really don't. Some people have gone back and forth on Twitter. I'm on Darren Till. I'm a big fan of Darren Till. Again, it's tough to say much of the breakdown. I know what Woodley brings to the table. I'm kind of stealing the thunder here. I hope you guys disagree with me, but Woodley is very good, but I feel like he's fighting very defensively. He's fighting not to lose in his last few fights. Against Robbie Lawler, I feel like he went after it. And then after that, he's kind of fought. He'll come out and say that he's fighting a smart fight. I see it more as he's fighting not to lose. Darren Till, on the other hand, I think fights very similarly, but I think because of the size advantage and the fact that he's southpaw, I think the kicks will be open. I think he's going to be able to outpoint him. I just hope that he makes weigh-ins, but I think that Darren Till is going to get this fight. I don't necessarily see him finishing. I think it's going to go 5 rounds, and it's going to be one of those 5-round fights that probably won't score very well.
8,100 a pop.
8,100. I mean, it's a pick 'em, so flip your coin. Who wants to take it?
Chris, go for it.
All right. So both of these guys are low output strikers. Woodley has the one punch power, but Till strings together the more technical combinations. Till is my preferred play strictly because he does more. If it goes to decision, I think he should have more significant strikes than Woodley. I had to go back and watch some of those Woodley Wonder Boy fights, and I just wanted to scratch my fucking eyes out. They were so bad. And, I mean, Woodley didn't do much.
Till Wonder Boy wasn't much better.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. But, I mean, and that's what I'm getting at right now is, I mean, Woodley barely did more than Wonder Boy. And I guess you can say the same thing about Till, but at least Till stays in the center and tries to control the center of the octagon. And he does come forward and he just does more. So if the fight does go to decision, I think Till's going to win it. And Till also has, I think he's the better striker too. I mean, it all depends as to whether or not Woodley decides to leverage his wrestling in this matchup, which he could, but he just doesn't seem to do it very often. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised either way, but my slight preferred play is Darren Till.
So, Mike, this time there's no tie to break, but what are you thinking?
Oh, man. All right. So the real fight is going to be Till on the scales. That's going to be the real championship fight to see if Darren Till can legitimately hit that 170 mark. Once he does that, there are a few fighters who I really believe that when they have that will to win, it just manifests itself and it happens. I think Darren Till at 25 years old, long story short, I think he'll be the next UFC welterweight champion. I see Tyron Woodley coming out and trying to. He has a few options now. He could play against the fence and let Till come to him, and then come out in bursts, like he did against Wonder Boy, or he could initiate wrestling, which some people think he's going to do, but that's not traditionally his game plan. Till, I got to wonder how the hell did he get this fight? To be honest, he's good. He, in my estimation, should win this fight, but I think there are many other welterweights who could beat Tyron Woodley. I kind of wish, man, I won't say other names, but there are other fighters that I think will get there. But Tyron Woodley, he's been a decent champion. He disposed of Maya, great game plan. Got by Thompson a couple of times, knocked out Lawler. But then there are other fights where, I mean, you saw Rory McDonald just had his number, and fighters like Nate Marquardt just totally destroyed him. The fight against Carlos Condit was a pretty close fight at one point, but Carlos Condit has some of the worst takedown defense in the UFC. So I don't see Till giving him his hips or his knees or something to get a hold of to grab a takedown. His self-awareness when he's in the fight, it's almost like these guys are superhuman in a sense that they're able to be so precise and keep distance. And I think that Woodley's 36 years of age is gonna show in this fight. And I think it's only gonna take about a minute and a half until he starts to slow down just a little bit. Woodley, he's not going to be throwing kicks. What is he going to be doing? Is he going to be shooting for takedowns? This could be a point fighting, experience that we watch, but either way, I see Till getting this done. Some people were saying that Dalby, that no contest or that draw earlier in his career was something to look at, but he's 25 now. That was when he was 22 years old.
Yeah, 21 or 22.
What can we hurt his shoulder in that fight?
Yeah, he dislocated his shoulder in the third round. Not for nothing. I'm shocked that he didn't get knocked out in that round. Yeah, he took so much punishment.
Here's one last thing too. The Darren Till that showed up against Donald Cerrone, I think was a different Darren Till that showed up against Wonder Boy. If the Darren Till that showed up against Donald Cerrone is there, he looked very different on the scales at that other fight. I think if that Darren Till shows up, this fight could and should end inside the distance. Till's going to be stalking Woodley.
Yeah, because you had mentioned it before. What are you going to get out of Woodley? I think you're going to get Woodley playing on the outside of the octagon, trying to counterpunch. Is he going to go for his takedowns? He may, but the minute he goes for his takedowns, this is what I think. The minute he goes for his takedown, if Till's able to basically stand them up, Till's going to get a free shot at him, and that free shot may be able to do some damage. So again, if Woodley gets him down, yeah, that's a huge advantage. He could win that round. But I think Till's going to be the stronger, bigger guy, so I think it's going to be tougher for that to happen.
Yeah, I agree with you. Woodley's tried to hold on to this belt for so long, and looking forward to it.
I also think Woodley is very smart. He tried to put Covington in a position where he had to have that quick turnaround to get this fight.
Yes, he did the same thing to Maya.
And I think Covington outsmarted him, had his little nasal surgery, and then all of a sudden, who's sitting there? Darren Till. You know what I mean? And, you had mentioned there are other guys. Yeah, I mean, they could have given it to Usman. They could have given it to Till. They could have waited for Covington. They needed a main event now. And Woodley, I think, kind of put his foot in his mouth because he went on Ariel Helwani's show the week before this came out and basically said he'd fight anybody. I'm ready to fight. I don't think he expected it to be Darren Till. And then when it was Darren Till, it's like, oh, shit, you just said I'm going to fight anybody. Now you got to take Darren Till. So I think he kind of got caught here.
He also said he wouldn't fight Usman if Till didn't make weight.
Yeah, well, he said he'll fight Till either way, which, again, not for nothing, that's smart because if he fights Till either way and Till doesn't make weight, he doesn't lose his belt. And he knows the toughest part is Till making weight.
I have one quick question for you guys. So what do you guys think about fading this fight? I think I'm going to have some exposure, obviously more Till than Woodley, but I think you can absolutely fade this fight as well because if Darren Till wins a striking-based decision like he did against Wonder Boy, he only scored 59 points.
I totally agree. Go ahead, Mike.
I'd be much more comfortable fading this fight if both guys weren't priced at 8,100. If someone was priced at 9,000 or 8,500, 8,600, then I would be, oh yeah, let's fade this fight. But 8,100, yes, I could see Till finishing this fight.
I could too, but you have to remember Woodley stagnates production for everybody typically.
Yeah, he does. I just think Wonder Boy respected Woodley's power more than Till is going to. He's going to be aggressive, but I understand. Yes, I see GPP being one with the lower priced guys and fading this fight. I would not be stacking this fight in cash. I'll say that.
No. But, my article is going to come out tomorrow, and I will not be suggesting that at all.
Yeah. Don't stack this main event in cash.
It's probably one of the first times over the last few weeks that we haven't said stacking is the right way to go. Not that it's always the right way, but this is definitely not a stack fight. So, Mike, what else? I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was just going to say.
Before we end, what other fights would you stack in cash?
Go ahead, CG, off the top of your head.
Pudilova and Aldana.
Mm-hmm.
What number are you looking for in that stack? 120?
Yeah, about 120. I'm not a big stack guy personally, but if I were to, I think that would be my go-to stack. Because I'm trying to think, what did Angela Hill and Courtney Casey do? I want to say Angela Hill put up 60 points in a loss, and didn't Courtney Casey put up about 90 points? So collectively, they put up about 150.
Yeah, and that was a striking battle. Yeah,
Correct.
It's a lot of points.
Yeah, that may be the play to go. I may have to write that up. I may steal that one. I actually used CJ. You know this. I used that sub last week. I talked about it on the podcast. I believe I put it in my article, and then I didn't play it. I didn't even throw anything on it. It's kind of annoying. But what, CJ? You got anything else going on? Is LaRock coming back or what?
I haven't talked to him. I'm just assuming that he's out in France. He likes it, and he's not coming back anytime soon, from what I know. So.
Well, I'll tell both of you guys that there are some people lined up to take your spot. The minute that you don't come on a Tuesday night, there are people lined. I got like 3 or 4 people lined up waiting to take your spot. So the minute it's like that Wally Pitt. You know what I mean? If you don't come to play any day, they're gonna take your spot.
Everybody's replaceable, right? So.
You know what I mean? Mike, sign us off. What else do you got going on this week?
Gotta be on your A game. Just thank you guys for your support. You can follow me at Mike's MMA Picks. I am on Capertech and betmma.tips and on Twitter. And I think we got a great thing going here. I respect everyone who puts their money on the line, especially through DraftKings. We all want to win. And hopefully, at least what we discussed tonight can lead you in a certain direction and open some doors to even further investigate some of the fights. And that's what it's all about, making your own decisions, taking a stand, and putting yourself out there to win some big money. So thank you, Steve, and thanks, Chris.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on.
100%. The reason we do this on Tuesday night is the DraftKings prices come out Tuesday, and we want to be the first ones out there. So hopefully everyone listens.